Hey everybody, welcome back to another fantastic episode of Ready to Die Fighting. I'm here at 10th Planet Detroit with my friend Adlai Cleveland, and he is the head instructor and owner of this lovely gym. The only gym I know of that has a bar, and I think that's really cool. Adlai, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I've been doing martial arts since I was 9 years old. I started out in Taekwondo, and from there made a transition to Aikido and Japanese sword, Wing Chun Kung Fu, Krav Maga, Muay Thai. Eventually found my way to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu when I was 20. And definitely fell in love with it, and it's been a passion of mine ever since.
Wow, so I'm understanding you right. You tried all those others, but Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is the best.
Well, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
That's what it sounds like.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has a lot of things that other martial arts don't have. However, I would say that my favorite martial art by far is still the Japanese sword.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's definitely where my heart is.
Mm-hmm. You've done some Kali too, right?
Yes, I have.
Okay, yeah. Cool. So let's keep this focused on Jiu-Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specifically.
Yes.
What is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu exactly?
So Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a grappling-based martial art. There really aren't any strikes in it. There is a form called combat Jiu-Jitsu where it is rolling with strikes.
Okay.
But traditional Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is using leverage and applying submission holds and chokes to incapacitate your opponent.
Okay. So this is, and I think the reason what drew my attention to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is, if I recall, it's an art form where the little guy can defeat the big guy by using proper technique. Would you say that's accurate?
That is extremely accurate.
Okay.
It is really skill oriented. Now, the closer in skill you get to your opponent, size starts to make a pretty big difference.
Okay.
But the idea is that if you're training and whoever you're going against isn't trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, your technique is so much superior to theirs so that you can defeat a larger opponent quite handily.
Okay. So we've got Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, there's no-gi, gi. What is the difference?
Okay, so the root of all of this is Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. Japanese Jiu-Jitsu was the unarmed fighting style of the samurai. Mm-hmm. Their main focus was training with the sword. But in case they were ever disarmed, they needed to learn how to fight against someone with a sword. So that's where Japanese Jiu-Jitsu came from.
Oh.
So it's a lot of standing techniques with joint locks and throws, and they do wear the traditional gi. And then in Brazil, that was taught to the Gracie family, and they modified that in order to be a ground-based system. So in theory, when you bring someone to the ground, you can apply leverage in a more efficient way than when you are standing, and that's where you can apply gravity to its fullest extent. So a smaller person can get on top of a larger person, and because of it's not just strength anymore, since you're using gravity to help you.
Okay.
So gi versus no gi, traditional Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is done with the jacket, the kimono, and the gi pants and everything. And it utilizes a lot of very specific grips, gripping inside the collar, grabbing the sleeve, the outside of the pant leg, in order to apply their techniques. Now in competitions like Abu Dhabi, where they don't wear a gi, or in the UFC and mixed martial arts, again, where they don't wear a gi, those techniques kind of go out the window. So no-gi Jiu-Jitsu focuses on clinching. 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu specifically is a clinch-based system. We focus on creating overhooks, underhooks, body lock clinches in order to control our opponents, as opposed to the gi grips. Okay, that way we can apply our techniques just as efficiently without having to rely on those grips.
Right, so depending on it, because if you're on the streets or whatever, and that's where the Gracies really made this art famous, right, in the streets of Brazil.
Yep, and the
People are
Gracie,
walking around in kimonos.
the
Typically.
Gracie in Action VHS tapes that I purchased back in the 90s, watching them doing challenge matches in different gyms and things like that. You know, in Michigan we have winter, so people wear jackets. But the other half of the year, people are wearing t-shirts.
Yeah.
You know, so you need to be able to, the nice thing about no-gi is that you can apply all the techniques with and without gi, regardless of what your opponent's wearing. Gi, jiu-jitsu techniques that specifically utilize the gi, you can only use them if they're wearing that. And then if you try to apply them without it and you try using similar grips, for example, grabbing the wrist as opposed to grabbing the sleeve, you're going to find that it's so much less effective when you're trying it out.
Interesting. Oh, all right, so where's the place where we can really see Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in action?
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in action, any UFC.
Okay.
Any mixed martial arts event, the fights tend to go to the ground at some point, where you'll see a mix of wrestling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Sambo, Judo, some type of grappling system. You're going to see in almost every mixed martial arts competition. Another great place to watch Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is EBI, the Eddie Bravo Invitational. It is a big tournament that Eddie puts on a few times a year, and he brings some of the best grapplers from all over the planet together, and it is one of the most exciting grappling events that you can find anywhere. And I'm not just saying that because I'm one of Eddie's students, but it is just that much more exciting than watching, you know, IBJJF Worlds, where matches are determined by a point system. Someone passes the guard and then stalls out for the next 6 minutes. You know, this is submission only, so you're not getting any points. You're not getting any advantages. Matches are won by submitting your opponent.
Is there no time limit?
There is a time limit,
Okay.
and the overtimes, if there's no submission, it turns into almost like a shootout in hockey. So you get a turn on your opponent's back or in an armbar position, and that's your starting point. They say go. You have 2 minutes to try to finish them, or they escape, and then they get a chance. So you each get up to 3 chances to submit your opponent from right there on the 2-yard line. You just got to get that last little bit to get the finish. And if neither one of you finish after 3 rounds, then they go by the shortest escape time. So either way, it's still exciting through the finish.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So it's definitely by far the most exciting jiu-jitsu competition out there.
Cool. All right. I'm unfamiliar with that one. Like I knew that UFC was, and that's kind of I think where I even heard of jiu-jitsu in the first place.
All of us do.
But I don't know about it. You know, let's back up a little bit. Eddie Bravo is the one who founded 10th Planet, right?
Correct.
Okay, so just for people who don't know.
So Eddie Bravo, he started out in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Jean-Jacques Machado, who is part of this famous family. They're right up there. They're the cousins of the Gracies. And the Machados, there are 5 brothers. And all of them are just, you know, almost gods in the jiu-jitsu community. And Jean-Jacques has a birth defect where he doesn't have any fingers on one hand.
Really?
So he couldn't utilize the gi grips like everybody else did. So because of this, he started a system where he focused on overhooking and underhooking as opposed to gi. Eddie kind of latched onto this and really made that part of his style because he wrestled throughout high school and everything. So he had that background. You know, it wasn't a Division I or anything like that, but those are common grips used in wrestling. So he gravitated towards that. And then the biggest jiu-jitsu tournament as far as prestige is Abu Dhabi, the ADCC Invitational. It happens every 2 years. That's all no-gi. That's 100% no-gi tournament. So, you know, in preparation for ADCC, they really went a lot of no-gi into that, and you know, it just made more sense to train no-gi with that style with that overhooking, underhooking, clinching style.
Yeah.
So it developed into a very unique set of techniques, and Eddie is a genius when it comes to this sort of thing, putting systems together, putting a strategy in place where you know what you're going to do 3 steps down the line while your opponent's still dealing with step 1. So that's really where 10th Planet took off.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know about the guy with.
Oh, John Dodd?
Yeah, I didn't know about that. So, and now this part I did kind of know that jiu-jitsu, I would say more so than a lot of other martial arts, is fairly accessible for people with different disabilities. Like I've heard of people who maybe are missing a leg, or I don't think I've heard of specifically the fingers, but or maybe even being blind and things like that, and can still do jiu-jitsu, which is really nice. I mean, I know there's Daredevil, but I don't know how well boxing really would work with blindness, but jiu-jitsu, I notice when I'm rolling, a lot of times I do just close my eyes because it's all by feel. So that's really cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu relies so much more on touch than the other senses.
Yeah.
You don't have to see what your opponent's doing; you can feel what's going on.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I'm big on making things accessible for people with different disabilities. That's something I've studied quite a bit.
I've worked with students that have cerebral palsy. I've worked with blind students before. It's students that are missing a limb. It's amazing to see, you know, just how much they can accomplish.
Yeah, that's really cool. So getting back on track, because we looked derailed a little bit, would you say that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is effective for self-defense? Because that's more realistically what my channel's all about, is being able to defend yourself.
Absolutely. I would say 100% yes, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is effective for self-defense. However, there are some schools of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that teach like a self-defense curriculum, and I think that's exactly the wrong direction to go if you want to learn Jiu-Jitsu for self-defense. The way I look at it is that a lot of styles like Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, Aikido, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu focused on self-defense. I think the self-defense techniques, you're on a very specific rail. Okay, the technique's supposed to go like this. They're supposed to swing at you with a wide hook punch. You're supposed to block it like this. Yep, you're supposed to do this, and you're supposed to take them down. What they never practice is when things go off the rails.
Right. That's true.
So as long as things play out as expected, someone with a knife thrusts at you directly with one big strike, they know what to do. So that's my issue with those types of curriculums. Now, the nice thing about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is that we are, if you look at rolling, if you look at our rolling, our sparring sessions, it's 100% off the rails. We have a technique that we learn in class where it's like, all right, a Kimura. Step 1, pin the wrist. Step 2, get your overhook. Step 3, Kimura grip. Step 4, turn them out. Like you step-by-step methodology. However, when you go to apply that on a person who's fully resisting, it never plays out like that. So you're constantly used to dealing with off-the-rail situations. Okay, we know what that path is supposed to look like, and we're striving for that path. However, things are constantly in motion. Things are constantly changing. So we're dealing with that and trying to force it back to the path. Sometimes we have to switch to a different path completely. Sometimes we have to change another technique. But we're used to dealing with that live resistance all the time, which is what you don't see in Aikido. You don't see that in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. You don't see that in these Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu programs that have laid out specific self-defense curriculums.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And it's not just live resistance. It's like you're resisting, but also trying to submit me at the same time. So it's like, it gets really tricky.
Now, that being said, if you do want to venture into more of the self-defense techniques, having a jiu-jitsu background makes those techniques that much more efficient. Because, all right, now we're learning these techniques, like the analogy is before that, are on a specific path, on a specific rail. We're used to dealing with deviations. We're used to dealing with that live resistance. So that'll make those techniques more effective
Right.
once you're already proficient in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah. Do you recommend Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for children, women, people who are maybe not so athletic, things like that?
Absolutely. Regarding kids, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is probably the best form of martial arts for them to learn because you're not punching and kicking your opponent. A lot of times kids are dealing with bullies, and that's not the best way to handle it.
Right. I mean,
so the situation can be handled non-violently, where they can take them down, hold them in a position until an adult can come over to defuse the situation. You don't have to bludgeon.
Get a kid into like a Muay Thai class, and
Exactly.
you got broken noses and black eyes.
Plus, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a sport, and they can compete in that sport and train that sport year-round. A lot of times kids will play basketball for a season or soccer for a season, and then the rest of the year they don't have much else to do. So Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu you can train year-round, and it'll actually build attributes that'll help with those other sports.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I actually didn't sign my son up for it because he's not all that interested. I'm trying to make, he likes hanging out here, but he doesn't actually want to do it. Yeah, he loves coming here, but he just likes to watch and hang out with everybody and stuff. But
you never know, one day.
and that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping he'll eventually be like, yeah, I want to do it too.
Yeah.
But, people ask me, it's like, well, you're going to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, isn't he going to choke somebody, and he's going to beat kids up or whatever? I'm like, I don't think so. Like, what I've seen, the kids seem to be safe. I don't see a lot of people getting hurt. I don't see a lot of aggression. It's, that's my observation. And even in taking the classes myself, I've noticed my personal endurance and coordination, and I consider myself to be in pretty decent shape, and like I've done martial arts and sports since I was little, but I can see I'm like, oh wow, I'm learning to move in ways that I couldn't before.
Absolutely.
And I think that's really cool.
At the root of it, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is learning how to control your body.
Yeah.
You have to move your body in very specific ways, and it's amazing the changes that you'll see over time.
Yeah. It's fun. I like it. I shrimp out of bed now.
Perfect.
Is that weird? Does everybody do that? So last question, most important question. Zombies. Will Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu work against the undead?
I have to go back to my favorite martial art, the Japanese sword. I'm going to say that's the most effective against zombies. Because if you put a zombie in an arm bar, you'll probably break the arm clean off, and then he's still coming at you.
Yeah.
So I got to go with something I got to go with an edged weapon here.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree. I feel like you're trying to, you're getting your arm bitten off.
Yep, not where I want to be. I don't want to be that close to a zombie. I'd rather be at a distance.
All right, so there you have it. Against the living, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, 100% is effective. Against the undead, you might want to do something else.
Grab a weapon.
Grab a weapon, maybe run, things like that. Start working that cardio.
Yep.
All right, cool. Thanks a lot, Adlai. This was, I think, very informative and fun. I love your gym. You want to give a little shout out to 10th Planet and tell
absolutely.
us where to find you?
Come check us out, 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu Detroit. We're located in Livonia, Michigan, Farmington Road, just south of the 96 freeway. You can find all of our information at 10thplanetdetroit.com, including schedules.
All right, cool. I'm Kris, this is Adlai, and I will catch you in the next video. Like and subscribe to get more wonderful content like this. This is like the best stuff on the internet. You won't find anything better. I've looked. I looked.
Okay.